We're catching up with All Quiet on the Western Front, which is streaming on Netflix and has been for about 3 months. We meant to watch it, and then it got nominated for 9 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and cinematography and sound and costume and international film. And so we caught up with it, and now we're going to talk about it. But if you have not yet checked out Riverside for all of your needs, your social media needs, your meeting needs, your YouTube podcast needs, you could come out to the world in glorious 1080p like us with crisp, fantastic sound. Look at us. It's like we're in the room with you, isn't it? It's like we're all hanging out, having tea. Right. So Riverside, we've got a deal below. Breakfast 15, I think, is our code. I believe so. Check them out.
It's in the notes.
It's all down there. So Riverside. Alonso, please tell us about All Quiet on the Western Front.
Meine Mutter wollte nicht, dass ich in den Krieg ziehe. Ich wollte ihnen zeigen, dass ich das kann.
Oh, Paul. So yeah, this is another adaptation of the classic novel by Erich Maria Remarque. It was first filmed in 1930 in a movie that won Best Picture that year. There was an acclaimed TV version in the 70s with Richard Thomas and Ernest Borgnine. This is the first time, however, that the Germans have made a version of it, and I think this is a novel that was actually banned in Germany at one point, so it's kind of a big deal. Oh. But basically, the story is about a young student named Paul. It is the waning days of World War I. He is encouraged by a teacher to leave school and fight for the glory of Germany because war is so awesome and it's the crucible in which men are made. And so he and a bunch of his friends go with wide-eyed idealism. And of course, war sucks. It's all muddy and bloody and you get shot at and it's just gross.
People die in front of you.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
All around you. People are getting stabbed and their heads are blowing up.
You're in trenches. It's cold.
Yeah, it's not no bueno. He becomes friends with a Polish sergeant named Kaczynski, or Kat for short, and it's basically about the two of them trying to make their way through to the end of the war. This version from writer-director Edward Berger, who co-wrote with a couple people, Lesley, Paterson, and Ian Stokell, takes some liberties with the text.
Okay.
There are some major moments. I read the book in high school. Okay. A lot of folks do, I think. That a lot of there some major scenes are not included. Paul does not return home and visit his mother and have another meeting with that teacher who told him how great war was. The ending is different. Mm-hmm. The ending is so different that it takes out the reason that the book is called All Quiet on the Western Front.
Interesting. I thought it was implicit why it was called All Quiet. I thought that was like ironic. They think it's going to be like we're going to forge in and we're going to take over, and that's not what happens, and it's not quiet. Is it? Yeah,
not? It comes from something in the book and in the other movies, and they don't do it here.
Okay.
Which is, fine. Adaptations have that right to do it, but I think it kind of undercuts the power of it because what we do get in this that is not in the other versions or the book is we keep cutting back to the German high command led by
Daniel Bruhl.
Thank you. Sitting down with the French to negotiate the armistice. And that kind of gives a sort of holistic view of the echelons and the ranks and that kind of thing, which is fine. But the original, I think the power of it is that it's so first person, that it's so much about Paul's experience on the ground, in the trenches, at the front, and everything that happens to him without these cutaways to the larger sort of political scope of it. While it still maintains the anti-war message of the material, it does so in a way that's not as powerful for me. However, this movie has a lot going for it in terms of its craft. Mm-hmm. It is, the cinematography is quite expressive and powerful. It is very much a post 1917 World War I movie and a post Dunkirk World War I movie. So you definitely see those influences in there. The performances are good. They get the atmosphere of it all. This movie makes some choices that I think work, but ultimately I think a lot of the choices it makes doesn't. And again, not because I'm a stickler for we have to be pure to the original author's intent. I just think the original author's intent works better in some places.
Okay, so I'm embarrassed to say I've seen none of the previous incarnations of this story. I've not read the book.
Okay.
So I was going into it knowing what it was, but not having any previous experiences or expectations of it, and was totally, totally blown away. And
Okay.
I say that as somebody who also loved 1917. And
Mhm.
yes, I see so much of that in it in terms of like the long tracking shots of
Yes.
like running across the field or whatever
Or
it is,
through the trenches.
dodging explosions and body parts and all that.
Yeah.
The DP who got nominated, James Friend.
Yes.
I mean, this is high praise from me. You know, I love my boyfriend, Roger Deakins. He gives him a run for his money in a lot of the shots, like a lot of the use of negative space
Mhm.
and stuff at night with like the lights going across, a certain space and just, it's beautiful and haunting at once. And the use of color and the use of like light streaming into the trench or into the bunker over and over again. I'm like, wow, this is stunning, beautiful and harrowing. But yes, I did get a lot of 1917 vibes from it. The thing with cutting back and forth between Felix Kammerer and all of the soldiers and Daniel Bruhl negotiating with the French, I actually liked that because I thought it kind of gave the film a ticking clock element of it, right? Because you know that at some point it's going to be Armistice Day.
Well,
right?
This movie spends the last it's like 2 hours and what?
It's like 2:28.
Yeah, it's like 2.5 hours, and it spends the last 45 minutes on the last day of the war.
Mm-hmm.
Like they really worked the ticking clock thing, and I didn't quite think they needed to, but it was that's an option. Because here's the thing: if you're going to show me like the high command versus the horrors on the front, my mind immediately goes to Paths of Glory, which does it a gajillion times better because that's like one of the great, anti-war movies ever made. I don't know. To me, it felt like a distraction, but again, I came in with baggage you did not have. So, so tell me more.
No, for sure. And also, like, I'm such a dumbass. I had no idea that was Daniel Bruhl until afterward. Like,
it took me a second. I had to look him up.
They put glasses on and it was like a Clark Kent thing. Like, here's a totally new person you've never seen before. But he's great because he has to juggle a whole lot of influences and forces as far as how to negotiate and like who is he benefiting with the decision making. And anyways, I thought he was really good. As they approach that 11th hour on the 11th day of the 11th month, like what eventually happens as they ramp up to that last second is like terrifying and very stressful. So I thought that all worked. I was blown away by this, as you say, from a technical perspective. Like it got nominated for the score too. I love the score. It's so intense, and you don't like it. You're shaking your head at me.
I didn't like when they would do the 3-note bois.
Wom.
Yeah, that was like really. But the other parts of it I thought were very effective.
No, I liked the wom. I was down for that. That was stressful for me. And the cinematography, and then like the costume and the makeup design, just the old-fashioned enormity of this was impressive, because these are hundreds of extras.
Yeah.
They built like a 3 football field long trench,
Wow.
I appreciate all of the work that went into the craft of it to put you in the middle of it so that you do feel the muck and the mud and the dirt and the explosions and the blood and the rain, the constant rain. And so I was really impressed by it and also moved by it and terrified quite frequently. There are so many moments. There's like a thing that happens with a tank. When the tank goes through the trench, I was like, holy shit.
There's a thing that happens with soup that made me scream.
And just and watching Felix Kammerer, he has to be our conduit, and that's a tough spot to be in because he has to have this whole arc of, being wide-eyed and enthusiastic, and we know better, but we've got to be on board with him, and then just watching his disillusionment until the very end. There's a thing that happens with him and a French soldier that is quite moving, a whole long scene.
No, he's really good. Albrecht Schuch as Kat is really good.
So good.
And Daniel Bruhl. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that's impressive about this film, and I think you will probably enjoy it. Clearly, you will enjoy it more the less you know about the book and the previous film versions. But I did. So
okay, well, I'm saying 9, which is higher than your number.
Wow, I said 7. I mean, I think it's good. I think people should see it, and it certainly earns a lot of, like you said, the technical Oscars. It's doing all of that really well.